The 49ers have just re-signed Kyle Juszczyk to a 2-year, $8 million deal 5 days after releasing him. You have to be asking, what in the world are the Niners thinking? And I'm right there with you, because the 49ers offseason kind of roadmap has been, we're just going to figure it out as we go. They don't seem to have any sort of plan. In fact, when you look at the offseason departures, let's go over that list. You have Deebo Samuel, you have Aaron Banks, you have Jalen Moore, you have Elijah Mitchell, you have Joshua Dobbs, you have Javon Hargrave, Malik Collins, Charvarius Ward, Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, and Kyle Juszczyk most recently left, Tabor Pepper, and then the list could continue to grow. But when you look at Kyle Juszczyk, he was released, and a lot of people thought, oh, this is the 49ers getting younger. This is the 49ers switching from a 21 personnel to a 12 personnel, which means they're going to run with one running back, 2 tight ends, because they had just signed Luke Farrell to a 3-year, $20 million deal, and then go with 2 wide receivers on the outside, preferably Ricky Pearsall and Brandon Ayuk, or maybe sprinkle in some Juwan Jennings while Brandon Ayuk continues to heal from his knee. But then they re-signed Kyle Juszczyk again. Now, great locker room presence. In fact, when you're at the games in person and he gets the ball, you got the entire fan base yelling juice. It is a really cool thing to see. And the 49ers, when they brought him in 2017, really benefited from having him in the game, helping with the run game. Fact is, he's 33 years old now. He's going to be turning 34. He is getting older. Doesn't really help with the getting younger that John Lynch preached. Same thing for getting rid of Tabor Pepper and getting the oldest long snapper in the game at 39 years old. But this was never about getting rid of Kyle Juszczyk. The 49ers approached him about taking a pay cut very similar to last year. Then they released him. He went to Pittsburgh, in which he was offered more money than San Francisco, and then came back and I'm sure said, this is what I'm being offered. They counter-offered with a little bit less money. He took it because he wanted to stay with the Niners. That's where his best friends are. That's where his wife's best friends are. And he took that deal. But ultimately, it's less money for him, not only in the duration of the deal, but also immediate. What am I talking about? The 49ers were slated to pay Kyle Juszczyk $500,000 just for offseason training, for workouts, and showing up to minicamp. That's all he had to do. That was part of his original deal, is I show up, I get $500,000 in kickers. Then you have per game roster bonuses. He was slated to get $4.1 million throughout the year. Now it's 2 years, $8 million, but only some of that is guaranteed. Not all of it. Now it does guarantee he'll probably be here this year and next year, but make no mistake, this entire deal is about saving Jed York cash money. The 49ers take a $3.57 million dead cap hit by releasing him and then re-sign him. So now you're going to have the cap hit of actually this year. But none of this is about the salary cap. Now, what's the difference between salary cap and money actually paid out to players? They're two different things. All teams have to stay under the salary cap limit. Now, that can adjust if teams carry over it from the previous year. But there is cash money that's paid out to players. Then there's your salary cap. For example, Nick Bosa, his very first year of his new deal, his first year he was paid out $51 million cash. That's from ownership to the player. But the cap hit to the team was only $11 million. So the team's able to spread out that cap hit over the years. That way they can stay competitive, continue to sign players. But that's not where the 49ers are anymore. Jed York is all about saving money for himself. Why him and his family invested in a soccer team. They spent $220 million for that. And so that's where all the money's at. And so they're not investing in big name players or re-signing people. For example, you have Luke Farrell that you re-signed and Kyle Juszczyk. You could have probably brought Dre Greenlaw back, but more than likely Dre Greenlaw was going to cost a bit more money and they didn't want to do that. So what they did was they're like, you know what? We're going to sign up a backup tight end. We're going to sign Kyle Juszczyk and just figure things out as we go. And it's really a head scratcher because it really is a change. They're the ones that said, Jed York said, I believe in John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan to get us back to a Super Bowl and rebuild again. My confidence is very high in them. But what they actually do doesn't align with what they're doing. So what they're saying isn't aligning with what they're doing this offseason. And I think if we wanted to be real and legitimate, it's all about Jed York's pocketbook. He wants more money in his pockets, and it's showing this year. You look at how they've released players. Only a couple have been done with a post-June 1st designation, but if there was a player that was due a bonus soon, take point in case as Deebo Samuel, you're trading him without a post-June 1st designation because you want the other team to take on his full salary. Get it off the books so Jed doesn't have to pay Deebo anymore. Yes, the 49ers are going to have a dead cap hit, but that doesn't matter. Jed just cares about what's coming out of his pocketbook. Then you look at all the other players. You got Javon Hargrave. You have, again, Elijah Mitchell. You got Jalen Moore. You got people that you could have paid to keep around, but you didn't. You chose to, you know what, we're going to go with free agencies, these second-tier guys, and we're going to start getting some replacements, backups, and hopefully the coaches can coach them up so long as we are saving Jed York money. In fact, a report came out this week that the 49ers off-season departures got $330 million in new money based off contracts signed. The 49ers have only signed about $60 to $70 million in new money for a net savings for Jed York right around $260 million. That's the most for any team in NFL history in the offseason. That's how much money the 49ers, John Lynch, Parag, and Kyle have saved Jed York. And that's what it's all about. It's all about cash in hands for the owners. You know, you might hear other content creators who think that the 49ers can do no wrong, such as David Lombardi, who might say, oh, this is the smartest move the 49ers could have done. Man, they just love to keep those pillars and cornerstones on the team. They're willing to let go what they need to go, but the people that are core to the team, they're bringing back. I love Kyle Juszczyk as much as the next guy, but the reality is they're preaching one thing and they're doing something else. Yes, there are a lot of departures. Some of those were needed. Some of those are questionable. Some of those you should have made a bigger, effort to keep them than not. For this one, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If you wanted to bring Kyle Juszczyk back, bring him back. But what was the point of the Luke Farrell signing? 3 years, $20 million. You're going to pay that much money for a guy who's not going to be on the field that much because you re-signed Kyle Juszczyk? That money could have been shifted over to Dre Greenlaw, and maybe he would have been back. That money could have maybe kept Jalen Moore around and started him at right tackle instead of Colton McKivitz. And so there's a lot of questionable things that happen. And while Kyle Juszczyk is coming back, and for us 49er fans, yes, there's some solace in that, especially with how many players have left. You have somebody that's sticking around. It still leads to question marks around ownership of this team. What is the motivation? Is it just cash money? Do you have any more motivation to win a Super Bowl? Or are you just trying to win a championship with your soccer team now? And if that's the case, it's time to sell the team. The 49ers are a storied franchise, very historic. You have a lot of the greats that come from here. And if ownership is now about the money rather than the product on the field, it's time to sell the team. Now, while Kyle Juszczyk, I'm proud for of him and his wife, happy for them. They get to continue and finish their career in Santa Clara. The 49ers' future is ultimately going to be based on, can the front office draft well this year and next year? Are they going to actually invest in the trenches? Can they turn this thing around? Absolutely. Can they make a trade to shock everybody? Absolutely. But right now, there's no signs pointing toward that. And so hopefully, Robert Saleh can put some pressure on Jed York. Say, if you really want to save money in your pockets, give us some money to work with. That way you can get butts in the seats. You think people are going to want to show up if we're not producing on the field? No. You think you can raise prices again the following year if we have another losing season? No. So let's meet in the middle. Why don't you give us some money to spend? Let's make a couple trades. Let's get some interior defensive linemen in. Let's get maybe an offensive tackle or center. And let's redo this thing. We won't go crazy like we did in the past, but we need at least something to work with. If they do that, I think they'll be fine. As far as Kyle Juszczyk, it looks like the 49ers are going to be sticking with their 21 personnel, which is fine. Hopefully he can continue to produce. Hopefully he doesn't regress at all. He has over the past few years, but he still is one of the most unique ball carriers on the field because he can run and he can pass and he can run block and he can pass block. So hopefully he'll be motivated with this last contract and the last go at trying to get number 6 for the 49ers. And that's all we got for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.